Welcome to Shorty SuperCoach. How you going, guys? Got a bit of a different style of video today. Teamed up with SuperCoach mates. They do a bit of a podcast, as you'll see for the rest of this video. They reached out. They were doing the Geelong preview. Obviously, big Cats man. They reached out and asked if I wanted to get involved. So yeah, it was good fun. Talked about SuperCoach, obviously Cats related, for about half an hour or so. So I just wanted to give those guys a shout out. Check them out. You can listen to their podcast, and it was good fun. So, one of the fellas, Mike's, went a little rogue later in the video, which you'll see. So it's a little scratchy towards the latter stages, but still, you get the point of what we're discussing. And yes, talked a fair bit of Dangerfield, some of the young guys coming through at the Cats, and just general philosophies about SuperCoach and how to go about it. So yeah, give them a bit of a suss. I enjoyed it, so thanks, fellas, for having me on. And look, hopefully we can team up down the track. And, we've finished the club-by-club previews, so if you've got any content you'd like to see, send it my way. Got the next couple of days off, which will be fun, be able to do some videos. But, yeah, if you're enjoying what I'm doing, I'd love you to subscribe, because I'm hoping to hit 3,000 this year, which would be massive. I'll be really stoked to do that. And hey, if there's anyone else out there that is doing a SuperCoach channel, YouTube, podcast, whatever, and you want to join forces, I'm all for it. It's good to just have a bit of a different flavour running through the channel, different voices, and share the love kind of thing. Because at the end of the day, it's all about producing some good content for the SuperCoach community out there. So enjoy. Here it is. I'll talk to you guys later. Cheers.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of SuperCoach Mates. Tonight, I am joined by Tom. Hello, Tom.
Hey, how you going? How's everyone been going over the summer?
Yeah, I've been going all right. How about you, Tom?
Not too bad, not too bad.
Not too bad. And tonight, we are joined by a very, very special guest. His name is Daniel Short, and he has a YouTube channel called Shorty's SuperCoach. So if you get the chance, please go and check him out. But hello, Daniel. Welcome to the show.
Hey, fellas. How you going? Thanks for having me on.
No problem. All right. So, Daniel, tonight's podcast is we are going to be talking about the Geelong Football Club. And obviously, Daniel, I presume you're a very, very passionate Geelong supporter.
Yes, correct, mate. Yes, followed the Cats for some time now down here at Geelong. Yep.
Oh, you actually live in Geelong, do you?
Yeah, Geelong man. So get to a few games, which is nice.
Okay, even better then. So Daniel, what rank did you finish overall in SuperCoach in 2021? Hopefully, it was better than what I did.
Oh, boys, look, I will admit it wasn't my finest season. It was, I think it was in the late 20,000s, I believe. I tried to block that one out. I promise you I've had better years than that, but it was a bit of a debacle. I'll tell you that much. It was a bit of a shocker. Had some appalling selections early, but I'm pretty keen to bounce back this year.
I'm going to now quiz you on some of those selections. So what were some of your best selections and some of your worst selections from 2021, if you want to go back over that?
Yeah. Look, to be honest, there weren't too many sort of unique things that were great. I had some handy rookies, but again, most people probably had those. But some things that sort of let me down, Guthrie, that certainly didn't work out. I actually started Jai Simpkin. I was trying to go point a different style. I talked him up all pre-season, didn't quite pan out. And Paddy Cripps was probably a big one as well.
Yes.
Backed him in to bounce back. Didn't quite happen. And there were just there probably were others, but Paddy Dow, he was one that didn't pan out how I would have liked either. So
I think I got sucked into him as well. And
Jordan Clark, that was another one. Yeah, that was another one. I was red hot on Clarkie, being a Cats man. I thought he'd go great. Didn't pan out. So I was playing catch up for a lot of the time, trying to make a few trades and correct that team, but it was a year to forget.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll hopefully bounce back. I mean, same as Nathan, he boycotted the whole season, so I guess you did better than him.
I had a bit of a silent protest if you've listen to other podcasts. So I did a bit of a silent protest. But anyway,
Oh no, it gets us, doesn't it? It gets us.
I guess we'll go into some more specifics for this season with regards to Geelong. Obviously, being a passionate Geelong supporter, I don't know if you've been to any pre-season training or heard any rumours or whatever, but I guess the main thing that our listeners will be desperate to hear is any specific players that maybe not on everyone's radars. Obviously, you got Mitch Duncan, who's a pretty popular pick this season, but is there anyone in particular that you might think is a bit of a smoky, being a Geelong man yourself?
Yeah, look, probably Cooper Stevens is a fella that comes to mind. You know, being a young guy, probably looking to make his way into the Cats team. You know, he hasn't debuted yet, and first round pick last year. So I feel like all reports are saying that he's really looking good. So he's probably a guy that I'll be certainly keeping an eye on. Could be a nice little midfield bench option. And, you know, it's a bit awkwardly priced, but, you know, if anyone out there sort of does SuperCoach draft and that type of thing, it might be a bit more relevant. But I'm expecting some big things from Quinton Narkle as well, you know, if he can get some opportunity in the guts. So maybe one that doesn't spring to mind as much, but I do like him.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, as a neutral supporter, I don't know how many Geelong games Nathan watched last season, but I definitely noticed Quinton Narkle, when he got released in the midfield, definitely quite dangerous. And definitely provided a bit of spark to that Geelong midfield. So hopefully Scott decides to keep him there, which would be definitely a bit of a smoky for super coaches. But I guess we'll go to someone that everyone has or has had in previous years. I'm sure you've had him, Shorty, is Tom Stewart, Mr. Reliable in defence. I think for myself, I'm sure listeners would have heard me speak about him in previous podcasts when I had the option to pick between him and Houston, and decided to choose down Houston, and he kind of
oh dear.
and Stewart decided with then ton, and that was it for me. But unfortunately, I think towards the end of last season, he had a bit of a Liz Frank injury, I'm pretty sure, from reports, and he kind of ruined a lot of people's end to the season with that shocking injury. But first of all, is he a lock in your side, being a Cats man? But are you a little bit worried with that injury towards the end of last season that could be affected his pre-season for this year?
Yeah, definitely, mate. Yeah, I mean, all things going nicely and he's fit and firing. He's a dream, isn't he? You know, just gets kicks, marks, the odd intercept as well, takes plenty of kicking. So he's a dream when he's up and running. But no, I must admit, yeah, I couldn't absolutely say, you know, lock and load him, because I probably want to see just how he's going in a pracky game, just see that he's absolutely up and running, because, you know, that's no hamstring, is it? Those sort of injuries can linger, and just want to get a good look at him. But he plays such a friendly role for SuperCoach that,
Oh yeah, 100%. The guy.
Yes, he does.
it's hard to say no to, isn't he, when he's up and running?
100%. I'll go with you, Nathan. I guess he's obviously a very enticing option. Could be potentially a bit of a point of difference, considering there's guys like Lloyd and what's his name, Aaron Hall, who are pretty popular picks this pre-season. But have you got him in your side at the moment, and do you think he's a good option, considering he's at a bit of an elevated price point, with so many other good defenders going around at that price point?
Look, I haven't got him in at the moment personally, but I think he might be a bit of a point of difference. I think this year being sort of in the higher price bracket. I did actually go back through and have a look at sort of some of his scores, and he did score really, really well, especially after Geelong's bye. I think he only had one game where he didn't score 100. So, I think he's almost in that band now where he's gonna, he's only $900 cheaper than Jake Lloyd, and everyone in SuperCoach, obviously likes the role that Jake Lloyd plays, and I think Tom Stewart has a very similar role in that Geelong side. So I don't know, sort of I'm a bit on the fence with where Geelong sort of are going to be this year. So I think the ball could be down there a little bit more at Geelong land this year, which I think might even elevate his scoring. So yeah, he's definitely someone that I'll keep on my radar, but I think he will end up going in as a bit of a point of difference. So yeah, I don't think you can go wrong if you're picking though.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I guess if you don't start him this year, I mean, at the start of the season, I guess he's a good good person to pick up after the bye. Something I guess you can't really be disappointed with any score he puts out, and his low scores aren't really that bad either. But I guess we'll move on to the midfield now, and someone that is obviously a really good person to watch in real life, but also maybe gone past his prime time Supercoach scores is Patrick Dangerfield. We'll go with you, Shorty. I guess, do you reckon he's a bit of a pod this year, and is he worth it? Obviously, in previous seasons, he's been a forward selection and someone that everyone's just taken with the grain of salt and straight away in their teams locked him away. But obviously, in the midfield, there's so many other options to go with. Do you reckon he's a viable option this season? Obviously, you got to take a look at the pros and cons being another year older and things like that. Do you reckon he's a viable selection and a bit of a potential point of difference?
Yeah, I actually do, mate. I actually quite like where he's priced at because, like you sort of said before, a lot of the time we've had to pay some pretty heavy dollars for him, and he hasn't sort of been around this price too much previously. A little bit to do with some injuries last year, but yeah, I mean, he's going to score well. He's still going to play in that midfield. You know, Geelong have got Hawkins, Cameron, Gary Rowan. You know, I don't really see a need for him to play too much forward or any more forward than he previously has. So I think he's going to score well, but like you said, it might just kind of be, has that next wave kind of come through? Like, is it time to maybe go more with your Steels, Petrarcas and Olivers and you know, all those types of guys? But I can definitely, I feel as if what he averaged last year and what we're getting him at would almost be absolute worst case scenario. So I think watching him come back last year off that injury, he just didn't look quite right. You know, he had a couple of just 70s and 90s and he got going eventually. So I'll be interested to see what sort of ownership he ends up with.
Yeah, for sure. I think if Geelong have any tilt for the flag this year, and it's one of the last chances some of these boys can have a chance, and I think Dangerfield is a key factor in that. And if he definitely steps up, I mean, watch out if you don't have him, I guess is a simple answer. But I guess we'll move on to someone that complements Dangerfield quite well, similar age bracket, and that's Mitch Duncan. We'll start with you, Nathan. This was a question from one of our listeners, Tony Ripepi. Apologies if I completely butchered that. But he pretty much asked us, pretty simple, talk me out of Duncan. Obviously, he's got him, but he's a little bit worried about his injury histories. We'll get to you in a sec, Shorty, but what do you have to say about that, Nathan? Have you got him in your side as well, or what are your thoughts about Duncan?
I haven't got him at the minute. I am just a little bit worried about his body. But you know, having a look here now, I think he averaged 99 last year, which I mean, he obviously only played 10 games, but I think he had a game last year where he only scored like 10 or 12 or something. So I think if you factor that out, I don't think that if his body holds up, he's definitely someone who could probably put in the forward line as a pick. I wouldn't probably be picking him in the midfield. But I think in the forward line, I think he's all right. Yeah, so he had a score of 10 in round 14. So obviously that has to go into his average. But if you take out that 10, his other scores, you know, he's only had 2 scores below 92 in his other other than that 10 in all the other games he scored in. He only had 2 games below 92. So the scoring's definitely there for him. It's just a question of whether or not his body can hold up. But if his body can hold up, if he gets a good preseason behind him, I definitely think he's probably in the Tom Stewart basket, where I think some people might avoid him, but he could end up being a good point of difference at the start of the year.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, what are your thoughts on that, Shorty? I mean, he's known to be a very consistent scorer. He plays a kind of super coach friendly role at times, down the back half, just receiving off that half-back flank. Are you concerned about his injury history, and do you think there are better options? Obviously, one name that sparks to mind that we'll cover in a later podcast being Zach Butters from Port Adelaide at a cheaper price. But how do you think Duncan stacks up against those guys?
Yeah, there's a bit going on in the forward line, isn't there? I feel like there's a few little tempters and guys that could have a bit of upside. And I mean, Duncan, yeah, if that fella's asking me, can I talk you out of him? The only point I would say, like reiterating what Nathan said, it's probably the body. He is getting a little bit older. Last year was pretty affected. The year before, he did an injury late in the year, just came back for finals. I think he just played 16 games for the year. So you take that 10 out. I think I did the numbers the other day when I was previewing on the channel, and I think it takes his average up to about 108. So,
yeah, 109. Yeah, 109.
yeah,
I just did it then.
yeah. So in a way, you could look at it and say, gee, we might be getting a little bit of a discount because, like you said, in my opinion, he's the best kick in our team. He's the guy that we really want the ball in his hands. He's a beautiful user. He's put it on the Tommy Hawkins chest that many times over the years. So I think all I would say is if you've got a bad feeling in your gut that he could be getting injured or you don't quite like the look of how he's travelling pre-season, that'd be your only reason to be concerned. Because if he's on the park, I think he can pretty much lock.
He'll score if
He
he's
can
on the
lock three
park.
figures, I reckon. Yeah.
Yeah, just about.
Yeah, I think he's a pretty safe bet if he stays fit. I think I read somewhere briefly before recording that they have mentioned that they will plan to increase his management of game time and stuff like that. Whether that means he rests a few games or they've already planned out kind of a schedule for him to follow with regards to management. I mean, time will tell. But as Nathan and Shorty have said, I guess if you're picking him for consistency's sake, and I guess you won't be really disappointed if he pumps out hundreds for the first couple of weeks at least. But we'll move on to another question from a listener from the name of Pavette. I guess me and Nathan probably don't have much say in this one, but we'll go with you, Shorty. There's a guy under the name of Sam Daikoning who looked impressive in parts last season. Obviously, we all know Geelong's ruck stock's a little bit iffy, to say the least. I mean, Reece Stanley does look quite, obviously being a St Kilda supporter myself, and he came from St Kilda, looked quite impressive at times and definitely has the most potential in my opinion. But the question is, will Sam Daikoning get more playing time in that Geelong ruck stocks or even forward line if he pushes that forward? And what are your general thoughts on him being a rookie price player as well?
Yeah, I'm a massive fan of him, to be honest, mate. I was screaming out for him to get more of a chance last year amongst a lot of other young guys at the Cats, and he's actually training down back. So I really think he'll get a lot of game time.
Yeah, well, he's listed as a defender option as well.
I was actually going to ask you about him. Sorry, just to butt in. Do you reckon he's an option to replace Lockie Henderson in that back?
Yeah, 100%, mate. Yeah, that's exactly what I reckon will happen. I think you could probably see Blitzarves and Daikoning be kind of your main men in terms of the key posts, and Tommy Stewart doing his thing. Jack Henry kind of being a medium size as well. But yeah, Geelong need a type like him, and he's actually pretty athletic, as you boys would have seen. You know, he's sort of thrown around in the ruck, take a grab up forward kind of thing. But from what I've heard early days in the pre-season is that, yeah, he's looking nice down back. They sort of want to settle him there. And I think without knowing, I feel like at that height, with that athleticism, he's half a chance to get the odd intercept, I think. So I'd really like to see him play a lot. I hope Chris Scott thinks similar. He doesn't always give the young guys plenty of chance, but surely I'd like to see it.
I mean, I'll definitely even out the average of the age group at Geelong. But I mean,
he's only 123k as well.
Yeah, exactly. So, can't really go wrong, even if he plays a lockdown. Yeah. Geelong's defence like to spread out the points pretty nice. I mean, even you take Henderson's scores when he played. I mean, he scores 50s and 60s, but for a rookie price player, that's not bad. And I guess he'll make a slow burn of money. But as we all know, and something we'll touch on later on this podcast is, I think we just need playing players consistently throughout the season this year. But we'll move on to you, Nathan. Another midfielder who is pretty much Dangerfield's sidekick is someone under the name of Cam Guthrie. Shot up into consideration in a lot of people's teams as a point of difference last season. Plays a very nice role where he's hard at it, does a lot of tackles, does the nitty-gritty stuff really well. Kind of elevated himself from a tagger to a really dangerous midfielder. obviously has a bit of an elevated price tag because of his good scoring or some good scoring last season. Do you reckon he's still a viable option? And what probably we'll go to Shorty with this one, but what role do you think he'll play in that Cats midfield?
Am I going first?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Look. I've never really. I know this is probably going to hurt Shorty here. I've never really rated Cam Guthrie. I think that might be from his tagging days. But no, he is someone who just seems to naturally just go and find the ball. So, look, I guess his price is a little bit of a question. Because I still think that as Dangerfield, obviously these Dangerfield, Selwood, and Duncan, they're getting on in age, but I still think that I think Geelong have one more shot, and I think they're going to want to do everything that they can to get that elusive flag for Dangerfield before he retires. So I think, I think he's probably not a bad pick at that price, but I think there are better picks around that price. But yeah, I think if you're going between Dangerfield and Guthrie, I think I'd be tempted to take a punt on Paddy at a bit of a discounted price and just see how the point difference is over the year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. We'll go with you shortly in a minute, but I think your audio is a bit funny, Nathan. It looks like we put a filter on you. So you might want to check that out while Shorty talks about Guthrie. But yeah, we'll go with you, Shorty. What role do you think he'll play? Obviously, he plays at midfield, plays a little bit all over the place. But where do you think his best role is to be really dangerous for Geelong, but also playing a super coach friendly role?
Yeah. Look, I mean, his centre bounce attendances will still be good. They'll still be high. But I've talked a few cats up today, but I probably wouldn't talk Guthrie up as high. I think, like Nathan sort of said, if you're tossing up between a cat in your midfield, it's definitely Dangerfield at a much lesser price. I just feel as if Guthrie, look, Dangerfield didn't play too much in the first 12 weeks, and Cam Guthrie did have some really nice scores, and he did for the whole year. But I get the sense that we might look back and say, gee, that was his career best year. And I feel as if most of his averages might just be between your high 90s to 105 type of deal. So I still think he'll be a really good contributor and a really good option, for Geelong, but probably not so much for your super coach. So definitely not to start, I don't think. He's had one premium season in his career, and I probably wouldn't build him up too much to start with. We've got so many good options in the midfield.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at his price point, believe he's above 600k, and
Yeah, 615.
yeah, so you're pretty much paying 60k more for the guy likes of Steele and McRae, who are proven scorers year in year out. And I'd rather.
I mean, he's more expensive. He's more expensive than Wine. I'm just looking at this now. He's more expensive than Wine, Petrarca, Zorko, Josh Kelly. I think I'd rather pick one of those guys ahead of Guthrie.
Yeah, for sure, 100%. I guess we'll move on to the forward line now. There's not too many Supercoach relevant forwards, but there's obviously two that stand out, and that's Jeremy Cameron and Tom Hawkins, and they're bloody important players in that Geelong forward line. But Shorty, what do you reckon with those two guys? Obviously, they play in tandem when they're on together. They are really good, but um, obviously the key forward position for Supercoach has created a bit of debate over the last couple of seasons. Some people say pick him, some people say completely avoid them because they are key forwards. What are your thoughts on guys like Tomahawk and Jeremy Cameron? Obviously, they play a kind of differing roles. Obviously, differing roles. One playing centre half and one playing full forward. Um, what are your thoughts on those two? And I guess especially with the more kind of viable option in previous seasons and under Tom Hawkins, what do you reckon the best time is to select someone like him? Is it the start of the season, or do you reckon you wait a bit, see how he goes, and then pick him up later on in the season?
Yeah, I think if you're ever going to take a punt on one of those guys, it definitely wouldn't be to start with him. I probably wouldn't entertain Jezza too much. I think he's the sort of guy that could bag you 6 goals one week and have a nice week, but equally he can toss in some stinkers there because, like you say, sort of deep forward. No, he doesn't really accumulate too much. He's sort of the goals or nothing more often than not. So, and he's never really shown massive fantasy potential on a consistent basis, really. So Hawkins is probably the one that has. But even Hawkins is a little bit up and down. I think what was last year, like 94 by the time we finished, and the year before might have been 105, and then I think he slipped back to somewhere around 90, and so he was 101 before, I think. So I definitely wouldn't start with him. And like we sort of referenced with Paddy and a couple others, Duncan, I think he's like 33 now. So, he's certainly he's still been great for us, clearly, but you have to think he's only slowing down. And like Nathan sort of mentioned as well, the Cats might not be that powerhouse they've always been. We'll wait and see. But I'd probably just wait and see on those fellas, I reckon. I wouldn't be putting them in your starting selections.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, did you? I don't know about you, Nathan, but did you ever select Tom Hawkins either last year or in previous years? What are your thoughts on Tom Hawkins leading into this season?
Look, I'm one of those people who avoid the key forwards. But I will say that the only key forward who I would consider is Lane Franklin. But I just had a look at his scores. He doesn't actually score too badly. So, I think if you are going to take a punt on one of those big guys, I think he is going to be the one you would probably go for. But yeah, you probably try and find a time where Geelong have a few easy games, and maybe you can kick a bag down to GMHBA on the cold wet day in Geelong. So I think they'd probably be the times that I look at. Just go through Geelong's fixture, just find a few games in a row where they play bottom 8 sides, and just hope that he goes gangbusters in the first game, and then you can just ride his price for the 2 weeks afterwards, and might be able to sell him 100, 150k profit. But yeah, I think he's a bit of a yo-yo personally.
Yeah, I mean you're pretty much on the money there. I guess what we've been saying throughout the last couple of minutes is I guess with one of those forwards you might want to time your run with those picks, and if you can bring him in for a good patch, might be worth it where they go gangbusters. But I guess SuperCoach is slightly different to other fantasy games where you can't really risk trades to bring in a player for X amount of games and bug him off for the rest of the season. And I guess we'll touch on this before we wrap up the podcast. And I think especially in this season, you got to be really careful with your trades and pick someone that can play 22 games and really score consistently rather than going gangbusters for 5 or 6 games. But before we wrap it up for the podcast, Shorty, are there any smoky picks or any other Cats rookies which we haven't really touched on in tonight's podcast that you reckon a warranted selection for SuperCoach in 2022, whether it is classic or draft?
Yeah, I mean, probably I'd definitely say Cooper Stevens and Sam Daikoning, like we've kind of touched on. Otherwise, honestly, I would find it difficult to see too many young Cats make their way through, particularly ones that haven't played at all before. Nick Stevens, young fella that might come off the half-back flank, I quite like the look of, but again, he's probably a few down the pecking order. And could be half a chance to see someone like a Mitch Nevitt or, we picked up a few midfielders this year. But again, there's a pretty long line of youngsters trying to get into that side that haven't really got the chance of late. So I'd say Stevens and Daikoning definitely keep them quite high on your watch list, I reckon.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like as I said beforehand, if Geelong have a shot, and I guess one downside from a neutral supporter is that their aging list is something that kind of costs them in finals. I don't know what you think about that one, Shorty, but I guess they really need to inject some youth sooner rather than later if they really want to be consistent finals contenders for years to come. And I think guys like Daikoning and Stevens might be the right decision for Scott to play them and have consistent games with them and really spark some energy into that Cat side.
I agree, mate. I think, like you said, we definitely need to change it up because what we've produced in finals with this current list hasn't quite got it done, as we know. So, yeah, I'd like to see some different faces, even just a few.
Yeah, but we'll wrap it up in a second. But we've got one more question from listeners. He's part of our Discord, Drunk Ninja 96. He mentioned to us briefly prior to recording about this whole COVID situation that's been pretty wrought in the BBL, where teams are missing 15 players in one go, and games are still going on, meaning that they have to use top up players of the like. What's your thoughts on it, Shorty? Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen. I know that a lot of players have been missing because of COVID. I know Tomahawk got COVID. Well, I think he released that on his social media page. And a lot of other Geelong players were missing out in pre-season. Do you reckon this season could be potentially more difficult than in any other year, or do you reckon you won't really affect it if players are getting COVID quite early on in the pre-season?
Yeah, look, it's definitely got the potential. I mean, these things change so rapidly, don't they, in terms of how we kind of deal with it. But look, it does have the potential to be a real nuisance, that's for sure. I think we could see unexpected omissions, leading into games, leading into during the week and that type of thing. So, yeah, but I don't think you can it's just going to come down to pure luck. Like you can't predict it at all. So as coaches in the SuperCoach world, we can't really do much. You can only sort of pick the side that you really like and think can be good and cross your fingers for a bit of luck. We might get a few extra trades. I personally think if it is a real issue, we should get a little bit more control in terms of maybe how the emergencies work or how much access we get to guys on our bench. But, the big dogs at SuperCoach land will work that one out. But I know it can come down to a little bit of luck when it comes to COVID. So we're just going to have to wait and see what the next couple of months hold.
Yeah, yeah, it was pretty much of a disaster year for many of us last season with all this being quite new to SuperCoach, and all I can say to listeners out there is, I guess, have a bit of fun this year. I mean, who knows? It could be a bit of a crazy year, and if anything, it could be the year where you just pick the players you like to watch and just have a bit of fun with it. Because, as I said, just watching the BBL and the guys that are playing BBL or involved in the BBL SuperCoach stuff, it's pretty ridiculous at the moment, and it's literally 100% luck. Realistically, like, you barely can pick anyone with full confidence, not knowing that they'll get COVID the next day and they're out for a week. So I guess time will tell with that one, but I guess, as Shorty said, it really might come down to luck and see how you go and just, ride the punches out, unfortunately.
I mean, all you have to decide, buddy, all you have to do is just go over to England and the European Soccer Leagues, and they are just getting wrecked by this pandemic. Literally, there's like 15 players from clubs that are missing. It's getting to the point where those leagues are having to suspend games because clubs don't have enough players. And I guess that's the good thing about having such quite large lists in the AFL is hopefully that won't happen, that we'll have to suspend games. But yes, I will agree with what Shorty said. I do think that this year is definitely going to be compromised. It's definitely going to be the luck of the draw. But hopefully most of these players, if they do get it, will just have to miss a game. Or even if government restrictions change by then, they might not even, they might not even have to miss games. If they test positive, say, on the Monday and they're, negative by Friday, they might not end up missing a game. So I think it's just going to be a luck of the draw, unfortunately. But I'll just put out there, it won't affect my team selection. I'm just going to pretend that it doesn't exist and just pray that none of them get it. Because, I don't think it's something you can, look, 6 months ahead and go, Tom Stewart's going to get COVID this week, so I'm not going to pick him, or Jeremy Cameron's going to get it the next week. It's just not something that you can plan for. So, I don't think it should affect your selection, but for some of those higher up guys, they might look at it and go, well, let's try and get you know, let's try and get players from all the clubs, and that way we're probably not going to be as affected as much. So, yeah, look, it is going to compromise the season, but I'll put it that way.
Yeah, spot on. Spot on. If I could just say quickly, I reckon, because it is a bit unfair, and I don't know what they're going to do at SuperCoach headquarters or what have you, but I'd personally like to see if your player misses through COVID, maybe you could get their average of the last 5 weeks or their average for the year or something, like I'd hate to see, either the top prize or the weekly prize or a final against your mate be decided by pure luck. So it might be a bit different at the start of the year because guys might have lopsided averages because they had a couple of hot weeks, but I think that would be perhaps the fairest way, at least by 8 rounds in. Jesus, Heaney's out or Mills is out. Oh, you get 97. Everyone gets 97, But I'm not sure what they'll do because it will happen, won't it?
Yeah, I think very close to happening at points last season when they had to cancel some games and went all up in arms about whether we get the player average or whatever, or donuts. But I think when you've got specific players missing, not necessarily whole teams, it'd be really unfair if someone missed out a prize or got a prize of pure luck or something.
Yeah. I mean, you'd hate if the 50k or whatever the top prize is decided because someone has a player missing because of COVID, and they've been in front all year, and they miss out because one of their players has diagnosed with COVID, and just by pure luck, the guy in second or third place, doesn't have the player, and they overtake them.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if Al Payton and Tim Michelle listening, I guess we've given you advice. So if we'll take a credit when that actually happens, but I guess we'll see how we go. So that's all we got time for today. Really appreciate you, Shorty, coming down and having a chat with us and listeners.
Thanks, guys.
No, I really appreciate it. I guess listeners who haven't heard about his channel before, he's done a lot longer than us and produced some really good content. Obviously, as you mentioned earlier on, probably didn't have the best 2021. But I guess if you're posting content, even with a shit year, it's pretty impressive, and big kudos to you.
Cheers, mate.
Yeah, so I guess you guys can listen to this episode on all our streaming services. You might have to use Google Translate to listen to what Nathan had to say towards the end of that one. Unfortunately, his audio went a bit haywire there, but hopefully this episode will come out tomorrow, and Friday we'll be releasing our St Kilda one with the big Saints TVs down there, and having a bit of a say with what the Saints boys have done pre-season. But until then, we'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, guys.